One of the most iconic video game franchises in history, and one synonymous with the Xbox brand, is Halo. And during the 2025 Halo World Championship, it's been confirmed that Halo Combat Evolved is getting a full Unreal Engine 5 remake, now called Halo Campaign Evolved, and the game is indeed coming to PlayStation for the very first time. I had the chance to speak with Greg Hermann, the game director, and Max Szlagor, the creative director, to talk about the remake, the changes, and ask what they're doing for the PS5 version. All right, Greg, Max, thank you so much for being here. Greg, I know you've been on Halo since 2009 or something, 15-something years since ODST, and Max, you were on Master Chief Collection in 2014, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it's about right. Yeah, I started working with Bungie back on Halo 3 ODST, and then a little bit of Halo 3 as well when we were when that was part of Microsoft Games Publishing as well.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I wanted to get into right away is how does it feel jumping into what is such a very important remake for not just Xbox history, but also video game history as well? How's it been tackling that?
So we did some of this groundwork when we originally did the Halo Anniversary game. And that's when we really kind of dug in the archives. We tried to collect all the source material. But at the time, we really weren't able to take it as far as we'd like, right, for what that was. That was a remaster, right? We were able to update the graphics, but really keep everything the same. However, for Campaign Evolved, we've really gone back to that original source material, revisited every single asset, how it's constructed, how it's put together, how the story and timeline is set up to make sure that we're authentic and true to the original while still making sure we can create a game that is approachable for both new fans and still have some additional new experiences for veteran fans as well.
Right, and that's what I wanted to get into is what is the studio doing to navigate that approach of staying true to the Halo identity and artistic vision the game had 25 years ago. What's being done to maintain that now?
Yeah, I mean, we, as Greg mentioned, we have access to original, source code, original storyboards, original data. So there's really a lot for us as a studio to reference. We are very committed to being authentic, true to the original, mood, the intent, the original story. Really every day when we're playing, evaluating this game, we're looking at it alongside, this classic experience, ensuring that, when we are thinking about areas of opportunity or, just how we deliver at the fidelity that's there, that we're being true and authentic to that original experience.
So can you elaborate on what exactly is new here? What's the new content available?
So you may have remembered from the original game, you might have, fought some enemies that wielded the energy sword or the fuel rod cannon or the sentinel beam. And those weapons, you would see the enemies using them, but you couldn't pick them up, you couldn't use them. Well, now you can use them, right? We also have the benefit of 25 years of player feedback and, Halo gameplay iteration. And so you also have things like vehicle hijacking. The Wraith, was not a pilotable vehicle in the original game. You really just get that expanded, sandbox that we can lean on.
But to that end, now we'll play, you can pick it up and play it and it'll feel like a Halo game that has complete as you would expect as a player who's been with the franchise for a while. And on top of that, we do have 3 new missions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was very curious about those story missions and where those fit into the plot, but also how much that does expand the original campaign as well.
So the 3 new story missions, they are centered on Chief and Johnston. It's a new story, but it's based on the lore of what their relationship with this kind of mission would be. It does take place prior to the events of Halo Combat Evolved. So it's a setup to some extent of events in the main story. The original story is preserved. It's intact as it was. We did not want to make any changes there. And the new missions will feature new environments, new enemies, new weapons, new gameplay.
So speaking on new gameplay, that is one area that you're being more forward about as far as touching that up, sprucing it up a bit. What more can we expect there? Could we also see some sprucing up in the department of a level like the library, which, I think for some, they look back at that level and it's really tedious, kind of a pain to get through. I mean, is there something that you're doing there to explore refining that experience a little bit more?
Absolutely. So learning from our experience on Combat Evolved Anniversary, we do have heard player feedback around things like wayfinding, diversity of encounters, kind of level spaces and things like that. So staying true to the original game, being authentic, to that mood, tone, feel, we looked at these opportunities and we are looking to where we can preserve that feel, tackle some of those opportunities in these level spaces.
Yeah, I think for the library in particular, it's about maintaining that mood and that kind of progression through there and seeing the additional kind of flood takeover of that space. And I think that really comes through a lot better than we were able to in Anniversary. Anniversary, we were with mostly textures, new coat of paint, some lighting. We were trying to help players through that space, but we weren't able to make any significant structural changes. And now as we look at some of those spaces that may have been a little more challenging to navigate, we have an opportunity to reevaluate that as well.
So let's get into modernizing the controls. I think this is definitely a topic that is up for contention with a lot of people, and that you're adding sprint to a game that historically back in the day did not have it, and the game wasn't necessarily made with that in mind, but 25 something odd years later, you're now doing that. Between adding sprint or other mechanics in the game, what is the studio doing to retain that modern feel, but at the same time walking that tightrope of making sure the moment-to-moment gameplay still feels like Halo, and certainly that combat evolved Halo?
I think we start from, making sure that the feel of driving the Warthog feels great, right? It's just a vehicle that you love, right? And the way that you can play with that, the weapons, all these other things. And then in addition to that, it's thinking about, to some extent, like, as you are playing that control and you think about playing a modern Halo game, where do your hands naturally reach for? Like when you're thinking about aiming, right? We've got the left trigger consistent weapon zoom, right? And then, same thing on the sticks, you've got a sprint that's available to you. If you don't like some of those modern features, we let you disable them so you can play it kind of as it was originally. We do think, though, that having heard feedback, there are players that those are things that for them feel modern for Halo.
Right. I think the key is that muscle memory, right? Yeah. When I sit down and pick up the controller, do I know how to play? Is this fun?
Yeah.
And I think this allows us to do that for kind of both new and returning players.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was something I was also curious about, is if there was maybe granular controls on turning off some of those things that you don't necessarily want if you want it to feel like the older experience. Is there a lot there by way of that nature?
I think you'll have some options to refine your gameplay. I wouldn't say it's going to be a very wide swath of options. I don't know where, but we are trying to make sure we choose the right set of options that allow for both those returning players and new players to have a really great experience they can pick up and play immediately.
Okay, that's fair. Let's talk about the multiplayer, or really local co-op split screen, which is great. Also 4-player co-op, that's cross-platform as well, if I'm not mistaken. But was there ever a conscious decision to do multiplayer PvP content for this game, which historically did not have it for this particular game?
Yeah, for the 25th anniversary, we really want to focus on the story that kind of started it all, especially as we were expanding onto the new PlayStation and engaging with these new players. So that was really the focus for this game. But as you noted, right, doesn't mean that the game does not include multiplayer. We do have expanded out to a 4-player multiplayer, and it's fully cross-platform with cross-progression. So when you're able to play across all these different platforms in a way that we weren't able to achieve in any of the previous titles, technically, this wasn't available even in Master Chief Collection. So, and then certain aspects of the game have been adjusted to be able to accommodate 4 players, such as the changes to the Warthog.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the Warthog is a great example. Like we have added a 4th seat to the Warthog. So now you and the 3 friends can all, pile into the vehicle and work your way through these maps. So it's really being thoughtful about thinking about this expanded co-op experience and, how that naturally fits into the gameplay, the encounters, the levels, and things like that.
Well, I do definitely appreciate local split-screen co-op. That's not something you see often nowadays. But let's move on to something I'm very curious about, and that is it's been a little over a year since there was the formal announcement that Halo Studios would be renamed to Halo Studios, and also you would be moving away from your in-house proprietary Slipspace engine and moving over to Unreal Engine 5. This game being the first one you're planning to ship with UE5, and I'm curious how that's been for the studio navigating that transition.
Well, I will say that we do have some experience working with Unreal Engine. We worked with Unreal Engine 4 on Halo Master Chief Collection, ultimately provided front end and some customizations for us. So we've been down the road a little bit around understanding how to work within that system. The real shift to Unreal Engine 5, as you noted, happened a couple of years back. And that's been a wonderful experience, I think, for our content folks. They were able to produce some of the visuals you saw with Project Foundry. And as we moved onto Unreal Engine 5, we were able to work with a very large community of developers internal to Microsoft all up, our friends over at Coalition and a number of the other studios internally. Rare helps us out a bit from time to time. But even more broadly, Epic's also been a great partner to work with as well through this transition. I think that everything is coming together visually amazingly well, and then we've been able to pair that with the kind of 25 years of Halo game code, content, metadata, all of this to provide what is a uniquely Halo experience on top of Unreal Engine. So I feel really strongly with this game, like we've been able to kind of bridge that gap.
And I assume that's been helping with the onboarding process as well?
Oh, absolutely. In particular, on Unreal Engine 5, the content creation process with Nanite and Lumen is very different from what we have with our custom engine. And it's very different what I understand for many other engines that are out there. And again, everybody's been really great with onboarding material. There's a lot of resources, both internal and external, to help us through that process. There was even a bit of an onboarding camp I know that some of our producers set up for several months to kind of help people through just the workflows and processes. And there's also been a bit of a room to explore and us to kind of figure out what is optimal under this new setup. I think we're seeing some amazing stuff coming up every month through Unreal Fests or from other folks working within this engine.
Now, in full context, Halo has a lot of history on Xbox and also PC. This would be the first time the game is playable on PlayStation. And for some, I think there's still the curiosity of what about Master Chief Collection? What about something beyond the first game? Is there anything we can say about these potential projects coming down the road at some point?
Hard to speak directly to the roadmap, but I want to say we're really focused right now on the campaign Evolved and getting this out. And I am sure you will hear more about new projects here in coming days.
Okay, what about PS5 specific features? So the DualSense haptics and triggers, maybe 3D audio, there's activity cards, game help. Is there anything that you're supporting there?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to look to make Halo a great experience on the platforms that it's on. And so we'll have more to speak to around those features in the future. That said, again, with Master Chief Collection, for example, when we brought that game over to PC, there was a lot of work that we did to really make that PC experience, have the right set of features and options that then benefit not just that PC platform, but also, the other platforms that it's on, and consequently similar for Campaign Evolved. It's the way we think about platforms.
Yeah, and PlayStation in particular, as you noted, has a very, very rich set of controller features. And I think we're really excited to figure out what works best within the system, and then we'll also make sure it plays well for extended play sessions.
How about PS5 Pro support?
Again, for all of our platforms, we are trying to make sure we've got the right set of features, game resolution, so that we're able to target 60 frame experience for all of them. So I think you can expect that on every device that we're on, that adjustments have been made to ensure that the visual quality and play is as good as can be made on that console.
Now, I do have to ask, it's a very important topic for me, and certainly for a lot of my audience as well, but when it comes to physical media, will this game get a disc print? And also, more importantly, will it be a full Gold Master printed on the disc that can be installed offline?
So I don't think we're have anything to talk about with that right now, but I would keep your ears open, and maybe there's something there in the coming days. Sorry, it sounds a little ambiguous, but...
Understandable. It's one of those things where I have to ask. It's better to hear something than nothing, so if it's a no comment, then...
Okay, I'll give you a no comment.
All right, Greg, Max, thank you so much for talking with me. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing more of the game.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you.